the passage. Let's quickly read it. Uh, it's a passage about a book. The book is about a subject. And what is that subject? Free determination, self determination, freely determined will, and things like that. So let's quickly summarize the passage before we attempt the questions. While the power of physical sciences to explain the operations of the world mechanistically is an irresistible force, the human feeling of being free remains an immovable object. It seems that only one can prevail, but neither looks as if it's about to yield. What does it mean? Great to try to explain the world in terms of mechanical terms, physical sciences in mechanical form. But at the same time, the human mind, the human feeling that we are free, we will not be governed by anything physical, that is also high. So, nobody is yielding. Physical, mechanical sciences versus your mental will, and so nobody is willing to yield. More than a few scientists have blithely sauntered across this metaphysical minefield as though it was safe terrain. So philosophers have and scientists have moved from one to the other almost like it's very safe to do this. They claim that science has proved that free will is an illusion and that's all there is to it. So scientists say we've studied both physical sciences and free will. Free will is an illusion, it's not a reality. Forget talking about free will. Psychologist Kenan M. Sheldon is a different kind of trespasser on the philosopher's turf, and he argues that free will is real after all. So you have a psychologist, he's not a scientist, but he says, no, 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 free will exists, it's real. Yet, his metaphysical claim, which occupies the early chapters of a book called Freely Determined, is treated perfunctorily and is in any case irrelevant to the rest of what this fascinating book has to say. He says free will is real, but this topic on how it is real is being treated very perfunctorily, means very casually in his book. But his book, the author says, the author of the passage says, is a fascinating work. What is the book about? Mr. Sheldon's interest in free will is rooted in his work in self determination theory. That's what the passage is about. Sheldon wrote a book on self determination theory where he mentions this subject, free will. Self determination theory he calls the world's most comprehensive and best supported theory of human motivation. A core tenet of SDT is that people need to experience themselves as the causal source and origin of their own behavior rather than feeling controlled and determined by external forces. So, what is the self determination theory? He says it's the most best supported theory of human motivation. And what is the theory all about? That human beings have to realize, this realization has to come, that you are the source and origin of everything that happens to you. Control everything, not external. You are the source of your own behavior. You control your behavior. You're not controlled by something external. When people feel autonomous, they are more content and successful. If you're content, you're satisfied because you think I'm doing it myself, I am free, I'm doing it on my own, you're more satisfied, content, and therefore you're more successful. When they feel they have no control, they become morally cynical. And after all, if we are not in control of what we do, how can we be blamed for wrongdoing? I'm not in control of what my actions. I'm not in control of my behavior. Therefore, I'm not in control of my bad behavior either, of my wrongdoing either. That will be their way of thinking. Most of Mr. Sheldon's 10 chapters constitute a compelling and clear introduction to what STD teaches us about nurturing a sense of autonomy. His book is about the self determination theory, and self determination theory will tell you about how to nurture this feeling of autonomy. Autonomy is freedom, right? You, you are doing things of your own will. You're not being controlled. You're not under any external control. The theory gives us a rich and powerful understanding of motivation, how to harness it, and how to avoid undermining it. Most notably, the theory points to the importance of intrinsic motivation. It tells you that motivation has to come from inside, the desire to do something for its own reward, not for any instrumental benefit. So, intrinsic motivation is when you do something for its own sake, not because somebody's paying you, not for any kind of benefit, instrumental, monetary, whatever. There are always some things that we just have to do, like washing dishes, filling out a tax form, but our lives tend to get better if, seeing ourselves as autonomous, we shape our actions around what appears to us to have intrinsic values. There are certain mundane chores that you do every day, but you will be really happy when you do something. If you think of yourself as autonomous, you will do those actions which will have intrinsic value. The positive correlation between autonomous work motivation and subjective well being is much stronger than the positive correlation between income and subjective well being. Very interesting theory. He says there's a positive correlation between autonomous work motivation and your feeling of well being, more than income and well being. Okay, so feel good about what you're doing. I'm free in my work, I'm autonomous in what I'm doing, would lead to your well being much more, has a greater correlation than I'm getting paid a lot, therefore. So basically, instrumental benefits are not as important to your subjective well being as autonomy or the feeling of autonomy, which is what he had said earlier. For this, you have to go back to the passage because everything is there, we know. So better be sure what is exactly written about it. We know that sentence is there. Cross check and come back. Which of the following situations would most undermine the claim made by Sheldon in the last sentence of the passage? What was the claim made by Sheldon in the last sentence of the passage? Let's go back. The positive correlation between autonomous work motivation and subjective well being is stronger than the positive correlation between income and subjective well being. So, if you feel autonomous, you feel good about your work. If you have more money, that relationship is stronger than the feeling that I'm getting paid more for this, so I'll do better. Right? So, that positive motivation has a greater impact on subjective well being than income. Right? That's what it is. So, let's now look at which one would undermine or weaken that theory. Mr. X's sense of happiness and job satisfaction rising with an increment and promotion. This is material benefit, instrumental benefit, so not this. No. Material benefit is more, but happiness and job satisfaction he's talking about. We are not very sure. We're talking about the term we want is subjective well-being, right? So, does subjective well-being include happiness and job satisfaction? Job satisfaction is the word there that's making you feel a little not been mentioned. You feel autonomous, you feel better when you do a job. That doesn't necessarily mean job satisfaction at whatever you do. You know, the satisfaction that you have in a particular field of work, right? So that's going a little out of what he says. Mr. Y, who'd been an independent consultant, happily became a part of the organizational hierarchy as a full-time employee with an increase in pay. True, but it's still, one is it doesn't tell about it, the past. So Sheldon's theory doesn't say that increment or increase in pay don't lead to happiness. He didn't say that. He just says the bond between autonomy and subjective well-being is stronger than the bond between pay and subjective well-being. Right? So this doesn't really weaken it. You feel happy, somebody gives you more pay, why not? Okay. All right. Mr. A's job satisfaction and happiness decrease as she is given a more autonomous role in the organization without any accompanying increase in pay. What does this say? Here, look at this. She has got more autonomy, so she should be feeling happy, right? But here, her sense of happiness decreases. Her sense of well being decreases when she is given a more autonomous job. She's got more autonomy. According to Sheldon's theory, more autonomy, intrinsic motivation leads to more subjective well being, but she's not feeling happy. So that uh, um, weakens it. He's saying she hasn't got a raise in money. So he's saying this bond is stronger than that, then this should have been higher. It isn't. So C weakens it. Mr. Z's sense of happiness falling as he's given an increment but has to be subject to more supervision. This only strengthens it. Sense of happiness not varying with job autonomy. Okay. But C clearly weakens it, that she's not feeling happier with more autonomy. Therefore, C is the answer.